I just wanted to really get this feeling of being out in the wide open West, and there's nothing around, and people live out here, and this is what these theaters are bringing to these people. Even just a little bit of culture, just a little bit of the world, and that was
and
really
a little bit of community, right?
What happens to a town when its last movie theater goes dark? For more than a century, the local cinema was more than a place to see a film. It was where communities gathered, imaginations were awakened, and the wider world suddenly felt a little closer. In the Last Picture Shows, filmmaker Rustin Thompson travels through 10 states, covering nearly 11,000 miles and visiting 123 theaters in search of what remains. What begins as an elegy for abandoned cinemas becomes something more hopeful, a portrait of the people still fighting to keep the lights on. Theater owners and caretakers preserving these spaces not simply as businesses, but as vital centers of culture, connection, and community. Join us for a conversation with filmmaker Rustin Thompson about moviegoing, community, and his new documentary, The Last Picture Shows, on Inside the Arthouse. Starting now. Please consider subscribing to Inside the Arthouse and take a second to like, comment, and share. It's the best way to support the show and help more people discover the conversations with the filmmakers you love. You can also listen to Inside the Arthouse on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite shows.
Hi, my name's Greg Lemley.
And I'm Raphael Sparge.
And welcome to today's episode of Inside the Arthouse. Today we are joined by filmmaker Rustin Thompson, here to talk about his new documentary, feature documentary, The Last Picture Shows. Remember that S at the end. It's very important. The Last Picture Shows.
Yeah.
So Rustin, you've, in addition to, having previously made several documentaries, you also wrote a book. You're the writer of Get Close, Lean Team Documentary Filmmaking. Tell me, what is Lean Team Documentary Filmmaking, and how was it used in the making of The Last Picture Shows?
Well, the idea is not new. It's just become sort of corrupted over the last 20 years in the documentary industry. It's really about stripping down your team to one or two people, and also stripping away all of the accessory gear that these cameras and these crews accumulate. And I first learned this style when I was shooting television news for CBS News on the show 48 Hours, back when that was first out in the 90s. And I worked for them for several years, and it was a way of working mostly handheld. Maybe the only light you would have might be a sun gun. You would have a sound person, and we'd work with wireless mics. And the idea was this would allow you to get as close as possible to your subject matter, whether it's a person or whether it's a thing that you're shooting. So I learned it way back then, and that's kind of the style I adapted when I started making films. I worked with my wife on several films, and the idea being that I feel that when you strip away the crew and you strip away all this gear, you get a much better response from your subject matter. Emotionally, they're more vulnerable. You can kind of be more invisible when you're filming. And so when I decided to make The Last Picture Shows, I was committed to this style because I didn't know where the film was going to go. I didn't know exactly what I was doing. And I wanted to combine it with a long road trip that was broken up over several months. And I wanted to do a lot of that by myself. My wife accompanied me on some of these shoots, but most of it I did on my own. And I didn't want to mess with lights. I didn't want to mess with lavalier microphones. And I just decided early on I was going to film everything natural light. I brought a tripod. I had a slider. You guys know what those are, just a little, put it right on your tripod. You get like a 2-foot dolly move out of that. Okay. And I got all the sound off my shotgun mic, and I just applied voice isolation filters in post and was able to get really good stuff. At least technically it was good. So that's the style I applied to the film.
So 10 states, 10,825 miles, 123 theaters, 25 theaters. when did you know that this was a film? When did it sort of all crystallize in your mind?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I need to go back a little bit to tell you how this all came about. So being in Seattle, as you guys might know, that we have lost 7 to 10 art house theaters over the last 10, 20 years, and a lot just in the last 10 years. And this has really affected me personally because I went to college here, 1976 to 1981 at the UW, and that was where I got my film education. We had the Varsity Theater, the University Theater, the Neptune, the Seven Gables, the Harvard Exit, the Guild 45th, the Ridgemont, all these great theater, Grand Illusion.
You got the Grand Illusion.
The Grand Illusion, that's right. All showing these great films. And it was like every 3 days I was seeing some kind of masterpiece, and it was the late 70s, but we would also see early stuff too. So I really started to miss all of those opportunities. And around that time, a new art house theater opened up where I live called The Beacon, and 48 seats, and it's kind of a repertory house. And they also rented out the theater to individuals if they wanted to show their own films, do their own series. So I started a Cinema of the 70s series, and I've done it now for about 3 years. And one of the first films I showed was The Last Picture Show, the Bogdanovich film. And I was thinking about that film, and I was thinking about this idea of my series getting people back into a theater, a lot of people like my age who had stopped going to movies. And I wanted to see if I could get them back into the theater to watch these great classic 70s films. And it sort of worked. We had some good crowds and good conversations. So around this time, I was also looking around for another documentary to make, and I pitched my executive producer, Rachel Price, who is fantastic. I pitched her on this film about me driving around the American West and trying to find all of these small theaters that I remember seeing as I on previous road trips that I'd taken. And I would look at these theaters, and some of them closed. Some of them, the neon would be going at night, and I would wonder, how do these places stay in business? Who goes to them? And how many still exist? So I started out thinking this was going to be a black and white, moody visual essay with music and text on screen and 0 people. and I thought, no one's probably going to see that film, but I'm kind of used to that. A lot of my work people don't see very much of. We've made small films and played a few film festivals. And so I'm used to not having an audience. And I thought, well, I'll just do another one. And but when I started out, one of the first theaters we went to was the Desert Historic Theater in Burns, Oregon. And I roll into town. I shoot the facade of the theater as the sun has gone down. And there was a kid working there who said, you might really want to talk to the owner. I think he'd be really interested. And I'm like, no, I'm doing a visual, broody essay film. I don't really want to talk to people. But he came back. I came back later in the evening to get more of a night shot. And he was there. He wasn't going to work that night. He came there just to talk to me. And I said, well, I can't ignore the guy, right? So there he was. I met him, and his name is Tiny. He's not tiny, but his name is Tiny. And he was just such a great kind of salt of the earth guy, and his story was so interesting. And he was so upbeat about this tiny theater in Burns, Oregon, that I completely, at that moment, I decided I got to change the scope of this film. I still want to shoot the abandoned, forgotten theaters, the sad part of it all, but I also realized there's a hopeful element. So I started seeking out the owners and managers of these theaters as I was driving through these towns. And so it became the film that you see now.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't have set that up any better. So, we're going to, let's give our audience a chance we got this clip set up with Tiny Peterson from the Desert Historic Theater in Burns, Oregon. And again, this is a clip from Rustin Thompson's film, The Last Picture Shows.
My wife was working at the newspaper, and the guy that owned the theater at that time, he decided to sell it. He says to my wife, he says, you need to buy a theater. So she said, well, let's go to the bank. So we went to the bank, and the bank was dumb enough to lend us the money. So we became movie buffs. Her and I hadn't been to a movie for over 4 years before that. Here's the cat, and her name is Cinema. We don't have anything else here. There's not a bowling alley. There's not a video game machine. There's absolutely nothing else for high school kids or teenagers or even young adults to have a night out on the town with a date. I try to keep it where a family of four can come to the movie and spend less than 40 or 50 bucks.
How many people you got in there right now?
Right now, there's about 19. It's a good Friday night in Burns, Oregon. It's tough making a living in the movie industry now. I still have a full-time job. My wife did finally retire, but she's 67 years old.
So how come you keep at it?
Because we enjoyed doing it, and the community needs it. The community supported me. I support the community.
This is great. I think you could make a whole doc just about that guy. Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
Well, Ralph, you kind of did make a whole doc about that guy.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
I mean, I you know, we have some crossover, and Rustin and I say this because I so admire what you've done, and I know how hard it is, and you have the extra added kind of road trip element to what you did, but clearly it came from a similar place. That, you know, the movie that I made that essentially Greg and I took this journey with, we did it over 2.5 years ago, was we filmed over 2.5 years, was really inspired by something similar, which is this sort of sense of this passion for these theaters, and how do you tell the story, and how do you, you know, at some point they're buildings, they're pretty and they have histories, but at some point, you know, how do you introduce this idea of the humans that inhabit them, and so you have this beautiful poetic, all these incredible shots of Americana as you travel, and then you drop in on these people, and they really touch your heart. They each one of them feel like heroes, and and are there for all the right reasons, because they care, and because they love the cinema experience, and they know that they're holding a piece of the flame and making sure it doesn't extinguish.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that these are buildings, because one of the soundbites I got from Jerry Lussey, who's the owner of the Washoe Theater in Anaconda, Montana. He says that towards the end of the film, he says these are buildings. They have a purpose, which is to take care of people, which I thought was a really interesting way of looking at it. You know, and for him, that's his mission. He has this like wonderful, huge theater, and when I was there, maybe 8 people were in the movie that night. But he says, you know, there's no reason why we're going to stop doing this, because just for the people that come in there, this building has a purpose. I thought that was really nice of him saying that.
I made that comment about them not all being buildings because, you know, you do spend some time at a couple drive-ins, which are super valuable for those communities. Now, they're seasonal because, well, they just don't operate year-round. Many of them either only operate, well, talk about the drive-in phenomena, which actually exploded a little bit during COVID because it was, in many cases, the only opportunity that people had to see movies.
It was, yeah. And as a matter of fact, the very first place we stopped on the when we started shooting, I say we because my wife was with me for the first leg, and then I was alone for a lot of the rest of it. We stopped at a drive-in in Milton Freewater, Oregon, and no, it wasn't open. There was nobody around, so I just filmed some shots of it because you could just drive right in. And it turns out that the owner was there, and he was doing some work. And I didn't talk to him at the time because I said I want to come back when you open, and that made me think, well, this has to be a part of it too. The drive-in, you know, part of Americana that really has faded. I mean, there's only when I made the film, there were 4 drive-ins left in Oregon. Now there are only 3. One of them I heard just closed outside of La Grande, Oregon. I think Washington State has maybe 4 or 6 drive-ins. They were hard to find. I searched them up in other towns. They're hard to find because they're easier to remake into something else, whether it's a Walmart.
Oh yeah, they're perfect for real estate development.
Yeah, exactly. Buildings, you know, business, strip malls, whatever. So that almost is a whole nother story. is
Oh, there is a
the
film
driving
about it.
force. Yeah, right. There is.
You said that you started this with this kind of love and loss and awareness of all of these theaters closing, and you sort of went on I want to say sort of a sad memory tour of these theaters, and or also other ones maybe that you hadn't been to before, discovering them. But clearly at some point you sort of walked into something that maybe you didn't expect, which seems to be that you met a lot of people who still really care. Was that your journey as well?
Yeah, I was surprised. I really was at the people who care. I was also a little surprised that they were business people first and kind of film lovers second, most of them. They were, as you heard Tiny, he said he hadn't been to a movie in 4 years. But he keeps that place alive, as he said, for the community because they need a place to go to. That happened many times. There was a theater in Chelan, Washington, the longest continuously run theater in Washington State. And he said, I'm not really a movie. I asked him, what's your favorite movie? He says, I'm not really a movie guy. I'm into architecture. And that's why I keep this building alive. I have other means of income, but I do this because I really love the space and I love how it looks on the main street of town. So I found that a lot. The way I found these theaters was by using cinematreasures.org, which I think you guys are aware of. And Ross Melnick is a co-founder, and he's in my film. And I would...
Great. It's a great resource. And
I couldn't have made this film without it. Couldn't have made the film without it. And he... the website... for people who don't know, you can punch in the name of any city in the world, and it will tell you how many theaters are still operating, how many used to operate, how many have been demolished, sometimes where they are. That became my guide for these small towns, and I was really looking at cinema deserts, which Ross talked about in the film, trying to find the most desolate spaces. And I would come into some of these towns, and you would see a theater that looks like they want to open. They have something on the marquee that says, we're raising money, or coming back soon, or we're in phase 3. And I've checked back on some of those theaters to update the film, just for text on screen, and a lot of them are still struggling. They're still not making it. And I there's some drive though that want to get these theaters back open and getting people to come to them. I'm not quite sure what that is, but because it looks like hard work. But I did discover a few things that were key, I think, to these theaters thriving. And one is, it's just, you need more than just a theater in these small towns. You also need a bookstore. You also need a really good coffee bakery place, like good coffee where people can hang out. You need, oftentimes, a craft brewery. And then it helps if it's a town that has some kind of ecotourism going on, some sort, if they have hiking or rafting in the area. And those, I get that question a lot on the screenings. And those are the places that I think are committed to the cultural, artistic life of their community. And those are the places where the theaters are not only still operating, but also thriving. Some of them thrive. Some of them do well enough to stay in business. Others are really thriving. But it was really heartening to see this. And I at some point I had to stop because I kept finding more and more places, and I could have kept going further and further. The furthest east I got was almost to the border with Oklahoma, between Oklahoma and Colorado. And I thought, if I go to Oklahoma, what's going to stop me from going all the way to the Mississippi? And then I've got more states, and the film is going to be like, it's going to be like Bellatar. It's going to be Satan Tango all over again. So I pulled back. But it was really remarkable to meet these people, and they were so generous and open to me. And I didn't have to deal with human resources, PR, corporate headquarters. I didn't have to get permissions. I could just go on in. And a lot of times I just got them to give me an okay on tape, not on tape, but I recorded the media release.
Permission.
Yeah, the permissions, right? Yeah.
Did they know you were coming?
Only a couple knew I was coming. I was really surprised. I was in Gallup, New Mexico, shooting this wonderful theater called the El Moro, beautiful Moorish design, and it was kind of cold out. There was still snow on the streets, and I'm filming, and there was a truck in the way, and this guy comes and he opens a truck door, and I asked him, "Gosh, can you move your truck for me? I'm trying to get this shot," and he says, "Oh yeah," he says. No problem. I'm the manager. I'm opening it up right now. And I told him what I was doing, and I said, "Can I film you opening up the theater?" Because it involved a lot of gates and unlocking and everything, which is good action, you know. And he let me film him right away. And I put a mic on. I didn't put a mic on him, but I talked to him inside the lobby, and it was just like that, no problem. He was so generous, and he was not an owner, he was a manager, so he had a slightly different story, but he did have a love of cinema. He was a film buff.
You talk in the movie to several of the owners, and they say you have sort of a chorus of them talking about how the studios really make it very tough for them, forcing them to have windows that go longer than the interest in the movie is, and then it really, particularly if they're single screen, they're SOL. And I guess I wonder if you could talk about that, and and is there any discussion to kind of try and push back on that?
Well, Greg would be a great person to talk to about that.
That goes to you as well, Greg.
So I wonder if he would want to weigh in. I can only tell you what I learned when I was filming, and it's a tough world when you have to run a clean screen.
The studios have some requirements, especially if you want to play something first run, which is to say that if you want to open. Moana coming this week, okay, and you want to play it, on the opening date when everybody else is opening, even if you're a single screen theater, you're going to have to play at least 2 weeks. And in many cases, they'll require that you play 3 weeks. Now, sometimes some studios will have special deals for singles and twins that would allow them to not play a film as long, but I've never seen a situation where a film doesn't have to play at least 2 weeks, if it's opening on the break. And they have what's called a clean policy, which is that if the theater is open and showing movies, you're showing that film. So you can't do a one-night screening of, a classic or an art film or something like that if you're playing those films. And I think you have someone in the film who talks about how they could double or triple their revenue. I mean, that's what they're talking about. They're like, I want to do something on Tuesday night, but I can't because I'm playing first run films. And yeah, to some extent, this is something that's rather unique to the United States because in other countries, I'm not sure that they have those same kinds of policies. And it is, ultimately, arguably the industry, cutting off their nose to spite their face because the films that people would be playing are potentially films from the studios. And so there would be more revenue for them in a global sense from that. And these theaters would be able to stay alive because they're able to increase their ticket sales. And that means they can play further first run films. But it's just become this, no studio wants to be the first one to relax.
Nearly every theater I filmed was a single screen theater. I did have a few multi-screen, and one of them was in Baker City, Oregon, called the Eltram. And the owner there, she said that having 3 screens gives them more flexibility because if, for whatever reason, the Odyssey isn't performing that well, they can move it from their big screen to their next smallest or their smallest screen. So that's another factor. And in some of the single screen theaters, that they said that yes, if we had more than one screen, we could do that. But this is what we've got, so this is what we're stuck with, and we're going to try to make it work.
The title obviously echoes Peter Bogdanovich's Last Picture Show, and you use excerpts from the film throughout the movie. What was your relationship to that movie going into this project?
Yeah, I had seen it once or twice many years ago, and then I bought the Blu-ray. I'm really into physical media. You can see back here, I've got my Blu-rays. And First I thought programming the Beacon Theater that I would just bring my Blu-ray in and they would put it in a player and show it. But no, he said we do DCP everything, so we will rent the film and show it, and it's included in the fee for the rental. And it was important to me, obviously, because it's this iconic film about the death of a small town, told through the metaphor of their theater. But it's also a very sad movie in a lot of ways, just in terms of the characters and their relationships, and it says a lot about small town life and what we've seen kind of drained out of a lot of the small towns, especially in the American West. And I knew that was going to be an element to my film. So you will see main streets that are practically empty, and even the ones that aren't completely empty, you'll get one truck driving by every 10 or 15 minutes. And that actually became a little motif in the film. I realized that made a good edit point sometimes, to just let that truck pass through the frame and then the empty street with nobody on it. There's a shot that I really love that was totally by accident. I was in Shelby, Montana, and I knew they had a theater up there that had closed down. It's called the Roxy. And while I'm filming, there's no traffic going by. There's nobody anywhere except a teenage girl and two little boys that she's probably babysitting. And she's riding a skateboard, and the other one's, I think, on a bike, and the other one's walking, completely ignoring me. And I just had this wide shot of them passing through the frame. And to me, it just said so much about these small towns, these this babysitter trying to find something for these kids to do, and they're walking by a theater that's no longer open, and it became this kind of metaphor for the whole demise of these towns. The ones that are dying, others are doing better. But I just love that shot, and to me it says it was directly a result of me watching The Last Picture Show and loving that film so much. I have had a few times where I've shown up at a town that's showing my movie, and they have The Last Picture Show instead of Last Picture Shows on the marquee or above the ticket, And I go up and tell them, I says, people are going to come here thinking they're going to see The Last Picture Show, and they're going to want to see Sybil Shepherd swim nude in a swimming pool. They're going to be really pissed off if they don't see that. So you might want to change the title, add that S to shows, and then they'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, the other film I want to ask about, I guess, at some level is Walkabout. To what extent, you literally did 10,000 miles driving around the West. And to what extent was the journey, became almost a character?
Yeah. Oh, that was so important. Interesting that you mentioned Walkabout. I just saw that again. It's on Criterion Channel right now. Mm-hmm. And I just saw it again. And that film was so influential to me when I was in college at the UW. Yeah. A funny little aside. I remember when I went to the Grand Illusion to see Walkabout, and there were about 10 other people in the theater, and we knew we were seeing some strange art film from this guy named Nicholas Roeg. And the movie starts with the opening sequence set downtown Sydney, I think, or Adelaide, Melbourne, I can't remember which. And there's no sound. And we're like, oh, this is cool. Look at this artistic, whoa, we're supposed to fill in all the sound. And then I realized something's not right here. And so I got up and told the guy, he says, is there supposed to be sound on this? He goes, oh, shit, yeah, forgot that. So they restarted the film. But anyway, Walkabout, it's perfect. So I really wanted to find all the parts of the West that were east of the Rockies or east of the Cascades. And when I was driving, I would see something that struck me that wasn't necessarily related to a film, to a movie theater. It would be something out in the middle of nowhere and I often work this way, where I get these elements that I just call texture, which are shots that I don't know how I'm going to use, but it captures something important about the landscape. So there was a shot of a house abandoned, a house, not a theater, a house abandoned with a tree, and it's backlit by this beautiful sky. And I just sit on that for a while. Then I have the shot of all of the white plastic rapidly blowing. It's caught in the fence and it's blowing there. And so people love those shots. And they've mentioned that particular shot with the plastic. And then I have the shots where there's just one lone SUV starting way in the back and coming through the frame, or the world's loneliest highway in Nevada. That, to me, it was like so essential to not only capture those shots, but just let them kind of breathe, let them just exist on the screen with nobody telling us how we're supposed to feel about it. But I just wanted to really get this feeling of being out in the wide open West, and there's nothing around, and people live out here, and this is what these theaters are bringing to these people. Even just a little bit of culture, just a little bit of the world. And that was,
and
really
a little bit of
community,
right? I mean, like just coming out,
community,
being
really,
with other people. I mean, there is an Americana, sort of at times a desolate Americana that you capture. But
these kinds of economic impacts are happening in other parts of the country as well. I mean, if you go to the Rust Belt, where where the factory is shut down or something, the coal mine, whatever it is, it's something that hollows out the economy.
Detroit,
for that community, and all of a sudden, big towns, Detroit, Akron, Toledo. That neighborhood movie theater now, is on a tipping point. Are there enough people left to keep this place going? And and in many cases, it's one business after the other. It might not be the movie theater at first. I mean, it could be the hardware store because everybody's buying their hardware, the stuff online. It could be the market because, we're shopping at the Walmart out on the highway instead.
The other thing that I didn't make a point of in the film, but it does come out through some of the sound bites, is that a lot of the people that are managing these theaters or have refurbished them, have restarted them, they grew up there. They grew up in these towns, and they moved away, and then they came back, and they see the theater, and they think like, I remember going to see 101 Dalmatians there, when I was a kid, and I've got some money, I've got some skills, I know how to pound nails. Maybe I should see if this thing's available and see if I can get it restarted again. Even if the theater was already there, they come in and end up working there. Like the woman who owns the Eltram in Baker City, she's owned it for 16, 20 years, something like that. And she grew up in that town. The guy in Gallup, New Mexico, he went away, worked in a job where he made 3 times as much money, but he said, I wanted to come back here to this theater. I love this place. I love movies. I was really struck by that. And not only do they come from that town, they have a history there, but they also work the concession stand and they sell the tickets. They're not just hiring people to pour the Coke, they're working the desk as well. So it's I think we take these towns for granted, and they do lose a lot of young people, and that's kind of tragic. But what I found is that a lot of these people want to stay there, and they're there for a reason, and they want to see it get better. And so they pour their own energy and their own heart and soul into it. So it's quite inspiring in some places.
You know what? Let's before we go, let's give our audience a look at the trailer for the film. So here is the trailer for The Last Picture Shows, directed by Rustin Thompson, our guest here on Inside the Arthouse.
The challenges for small town theaters are many. We have places where sometimes 50 miles, there is no movie theater at all, what I would refer to as cinema deserts. If you don't create the movie-going experience for children and young adults, they don't develop that habit and they'll never pick it up. You can't miss what you don't know.
It's tough making a living in the movie industry now.
We've lost over $100,000 2 years in a row. This is our 3rd year where we're on that track.
Our greatest challenge today is how we're treated by the studios.
They determine when and how you get the film.
If I could book things the way I want to, I'd make 3 or 4 times as much money.
The film companies are cutting their own throats.
So how come you keep at it?
Because we enjoyed doing it and the community needs it. The community supported me, I support the community.
up coming here as a little kid to this same drive-in. It's one of the few around.
This is our 62nd season.
I started working here in 1998 when I was 16.
My grandfather taught me how to be a projectionist when I was 13.
I actually had my first kiss in this theater.
This fair land, I'll stay no more.
Movies are now just like data parts streaming in the air. When it's real, that's the payoff.
We're at a turning point where film could disappear.
The old motto of the movie house is that you are being treated like royalty, whether you are the mayor or farmer. The movie house was the pride of that town.
I'm going to the west.
I love
Lovely.
it.
I mean, it's a movie that captures the moment. It captures America. It captures people's love of theaters, but it also leaves you, I want to say, with some sense of hope and also just that there are people who are carrying it forward. Yes, a lot of theaters have closed, but there's a lot that are remaining open and will remain open because there's a lot of people behind them.
And there's a lot that are going to reopen.
Yes.
Wonderful.
I think I think we're refashioning the model of how to make this work, and community supported theaters, and we're seeing a lot of these theaters coming back. In terms of your film, you're currently sort of replicating your driving tour of the West. I know you're as we speak now, or you've got a tour of some Pacific Northwest theaters. But by the time this episode comes out, you're going to be opening on August 7th at the Village East in New York. And I guess you're going to be there for Q&A opening weekend.
Q&A opening, 3 Q&As on opening weekend. Then the film is also going to be booked in a few other places for one-offs around New York. It's going to be booked in Bronxville. It's going to be at the New Plaza. That's
terrific. Great.
It's going to be out on Long Island. Then I'm going up to Chatham, New York. Is it Chatham? The Crandall Theater, and to Somerville for a film there. And then I go down to your theater, Greg, the Royal in LA for a
opening
week-long run.
August 21 in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I'm going to be showing at Ojai and possibly Santa Ana as well at the Frida.
Yeah, great venue.
Yeah. And then I just have to say this, and then I'm talking to my booker, Jessica, who's great, and she's letting me set up the run of the theaters where I filmed. Because I have contacts with those people, and I'm setting that up so I can take the movie there. The one in Winthrop, the Barnyard, was the first one. Then I'm going to show it in all these small little towns that I filmed in. The ones that can book it. Some of them can't because they're tied to Hollywood product. And
they can find a way, but we'll talk about it. Have them come to me. I'll explain.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
I'll figure it out. I mean, Jessica and we can run the rule. For people who do want to get information about when the film, if the film is coming to their neck of the woods, or when it is coming, or if they just want to say, hey, come to my neck of the woods, where do they go?
The best place is my website. It's a very simple website. I update it all the time. But that's my name, Rustin Thompson, and The Last Picture Shows. Just Google that, and you'll come to my website.
Right. So that's rustinthompson.com/last-picture-shows. And again, I mean, really, I think there's an opportunity if you say, I want this to show, I'm going to go talk to my local movie theater and figure out, Jessica will arrange to send to DCP and you can have a screening. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, Rustin, it's wonderful that you've made this film. It's wonderful that you get to go out and show it to people and have this discussion. It's such an important discussion for people to be reminded how important these theaters are and why they're worth saving, and how what a valiant and important and courageous thing that it is to run a theater every single day.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And I'm having a blast doing this. As I said, it used to be that nobody would see my film, so I would never do something like this. So this has been great. This has been, it's a lot of work, but I'm having a lot of fun. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us, Rustin Thompson.
Thank you
to the audience for joining us. If you've enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe and share information about the film, The Last Picture Shows, and also about this program, Inside the Art House.